me to put the presentation up, okay?
Okay. Thank you, Jane, for your very kind words. Good morning, everyone. How is everyone feeling? Can we have a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Good. Glad to see mostly thumbs up. I've just come from another conference. As Jane says, I don't always like to say no, and I'm starting to learn to get a bit of balance in life with this COVID-19 situation we're finding ourselves in. But that was really interesting. I was listening to teachers from Zambia, the Gambia and Egypt, and they were talking about the solutions that they're putting in place to deal with the current pandemic. So anyway, thank you for inviting me today. You can put the presentation up if you like, Jane. Okay. So as Jane said, I'm the Chief Executive of the Steve Sinnott Foundation. The Steve Sinnott Foundation has been in operation for 11 years now. We had our 10-year anniversary last year, and it was set up in memory of Steve Sinnott, who was the General Secretary of the National Union of Teachers. And he had a passion for international education. And he died, sadly, in 2008. So the foundation was set up in his memory to ensure that children all around the world can access education. Next slide, Jane, please. So a little bit about me. As Jane's told you, I'm a Soroptimist, and I was introduced to Soroptimist by some women who I met in Yorkshire, who supported a project that we were working on in Nepal at the time. Now, I believe that all children everywhere should have access to education, regardless of their circumstances, where they were born or who they were born to. And the reason for that is I know firsthand what it means to miss out on an education, but that's a story for another moment, because here we're talking about the Steve Sinnott Foundation's work. I spent most of my career working in social housing and community development, and that really gave me lots of experience about working with community groups, and quite often thinking that you knew the solution, and then when you met with people you found that actually the solution you thought was right was not the solution that they wanted at all. I then trained as a coach and a neuro-linguistic programming practitioner, and then about 5 years ago I found myself working in international development and education. And yes, and I got there because I went to Sierra Leone and I worked for a charity, volunteering for about 2 years, and that kind of just changed my life path. When I came back to the UK, I wanted to do something different, and that's how I ended up working at the Steve Sinnott Foundation. Next slide, please, Jane. Okay. So at the Steve Sinnott Foundation, we believe that Sustainable Development Goal 4, which is quality education, is key to achieving all of the Sustainable Development Goals. We believe that education, without education, people won't understand about climate action, they won't understand about health, gender equality. All of the goals are really key to achievement is through quality education. Jane. So the Steve Sinnott Foundation works with teachers and educators to deliver projects that progress the achievement of Sustainable Development Goal 4. That's quite a mouthful. I'm going to call them SDGs from now on. So we deliver projects where we're invited to work, and that's due to Steve Sinnott being the General Secretary of the National Union of Teachers. We often get invited by unions across the world to help them deliver projects. So we haven't got a niche area or a niche product that we deliver. We work on projects that are developed on the ground by the people, and that they're fit for purpose. So they're always set up and managed by the people on the ground with our support. And we always look to support projects that are going to be sustainable in the longer term. I am very proud to be the Chief Executive, and I feel very honoured to work for the Steve Sinnott Foundation. Next slide, please, Jane. So we've all had a bit of a shock to the system this year. In February this year, I was speaking at a conference in Havana in Cuba. It was a university conference which was focusing on sustainability. And as part of my trip there, I trained teachers and community groups on making reusable sanitary pads. It was quite an eye-opener for me because I actually didn't know how to make reusable sanitary pads. And I know that sounds incredible, but I didn't, because I'm not the best person with a sewing machine or a needle and thread. And when I set off to go to Cuba, they heard about this other project that we were working on, the positive periods. And so they asked me to train some teachers there. And believe you me, I took every way I could think of to get out of doing that training, but they insisted upon it. So of course I had to learn how to make the pads myself. And actually I'm glad I did now, because I can train other people, which is good. So that was me in February with some women in Havana in Cuba, and we were doing some sanitary pad training. And then in March 2020, who knew that we would be in lockdown, not only in the UK, but across the world, and life would become very different. Next slide, please, Jane. So at the Steve Sinnott Foundation, we had to look at different ways that we were going to work. Obviously, all of the projects that we were working on at the time started shutting down. People were going into lockdown, and we had to think creatively about how we could get people to continue learning across the world. So a couple of the projects that we did was in the Gambia. We supported them to deliver solar radios. So over the past year, we've delivered 380 radios, which has reached about 3,800 learners, so that they could continue getting lessons through the radio. We've also delivered written materials and skipping ropes, football, so that they can be healthy and play as well, the children in the rural areas. And we also did a project over 4 weeks called Myths and Storytelling. And you'll see these two young people on the left. They are from Sierra Leone. So we had children and teachers from Haiti, Sierra Leone, the Gambia and the UK. And it really showed us how difficult it is for people across the world, not only in other countries, but also in the UK, to get connected and to do online learning. These two fabulous students, they were absolutely mesmerised because they could talk to people in other countries. They were online for the first time in their lives, and that's them too listening to one of our stories. So it was fantastic, but it was very challenging. 1 week people could connect, and other weeks they couldn't, and that's something that now we're going to work on going forward. One of our goals now is to ensure that people could connect worldwide, and so we're working on that with some students from Brunel University at present to try and get more people connected to do online learning. Next slide, please, So positive periods is another project that we work on. One of, as I mentioned earlier, we were in Cuba earlier this year. Tomorrow is the International Day of the Girl Child, and there will be some reports coming out over this coming week, which will be showing some progress in education for girls. And me personally, I find it hard to see what the progress is, because in some of the countries that we're working in, such as Haiti, Nepal, the Gambia, Sierra Leone, Uganda, you know, girls do not have the same opportunities as boys. And, you know, boys are disadvantaged in many places too, but girls definitely don't. I know I'm probably preaching to the converted, but I want to share some figures with you. So in the Gambia, for example, 9% excuse me, 9% of girls will be married before the age of 15. 80% of girls and women during the pandemic across all the countries we work in could not afford or access period products during the pandemic. And, you know, that figure is quite, it didn't go up that much due to the pandemic, to be honest. So there's lots of barriers to girls' education. There's social expectations that girls will get married young, that they will, you know, keep the home, that they have to, you know, work. Education is not a key priority for many, many girls. And then there's poverty, teenage pregnancy. But the most amazing barrier to education for girls is that they have a period. And I find that completely crazy that in this day and age, young girls, when they get their period, they can't go to school for about 50 days a year because they do not have access to period products. So what we've done is we've worked with teachers in the Gambia and in Sierra Leone and various other countries. And the model that we have is that teachers will teach, train community groups, women and girls, and also men have got involved in this project as well. When we first started off, we didn't include men, but then men said to us, you know, we've got sisters, you know, children, you know, in our schools and our own children, and we want to be able to learn how to make these pads as well. So we've been working on this project now for coming up to 3 years, and we've trained over 60,000 girls to make their own reusable sanitary products. The sanitary pads are made in country, all materials are bought in country, and it's like, you know, they sort of train the trainer idea. And that's a project that we're really proud of, and that we hope that Soroptimists will continue to support us with. Can I have the next slide, please, Jane? So now, because of the pandemic, we looked at other ways in which we could continue learning. And one of those ways was to set up a lifelong learning webinar series, which we've done, and that's been running now since September. And it's a way of us generating income as a foundation. And the income that we get from the lifelong webinar series is going to 2 projects. One is the Positive Periods project, because we're hoping to, well, it's actually started up in Sierra Leone 2 weeks ago again, and it's going to start up in the other countries over the coming weeks, depending of course on the lockdown and how we can facilitate social distancing and keep everyone safe, etc. So the webinar series, you'll be able to look on Eventbrite if you look up the Steve Sinnott Foundation. We've got all sorts of different things. We're looking at education, of course, business skills and health and well-being, and I hope that some of you will have a look at that over the coming weeks. can I have the next slide, please, Jane? Okay, so actually, you can take the slides down now, Jane, if you wouldn't mind. Hi, everyone. That was a bit of a whirlwind about what we're doing. I hope everyone could hear me. I just wanted to get a kind of feel for how many of us have found new ways of working in 2020. If, you know, we could have a bit of a hands up. Yeah. Yeah. I think, you know, as Soroptimists, we've had to as well, haven't we? I just wondered if any other people had any stories to share, or if you've got any questions for me personally. Jane, I don't know how you want to facilitate this next bit. Shall I pass it over to you?
Well, if people can either type things into chat, and then I can ask the question, or they can unmute themselves and ask you a question directly, Anne. I'm sure that will work.
Yeah. I mean, I'm keen to have a conversation if people are up for it, because my voice is running out.
I mean, I think from a Soroptimist point of view, our club has really embraced Zoom, and it makes a big difference when you're not able to get together physically. We would love to have face-to-face, and it's not just our club. You know, I'm attending other. I sit on the St Albans and Hertsmere domestic violence forum, domestic abuse forum, and they're holding it on Microsoft Teams. So that's gone online, and actually more people can attend because they're not having to travel to a venue. So it changes things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm sure other people have got other experiences too. So do chip in, everybody, and unmute yourself.
One of the things that we've found, both in Soroptimists and other organisations that I'm involved with, is that it's actually easier to organise something fairly late on. So it doesn't need a room booking and the projector finding and all that sort of stuff. It is possible to be more fleet of foot. It's a phrase that I quite like, to set things up without too much pre-organisation, which is very helpful to find ways of roping other people in, so to speak.
There's a question here, Anne, asking if you've got a sample of any of the sanitary products.
I haven't got one with me, I'm afraid. I just had a clear out last week and brought all the things that I was using at home back to the office. And I'm afraid some of the samples have gone back there. I'll have a look on my phone and see if I've got any while people are talking.
Oh, and see if you've got a photo.
A photo, yes.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Anne.
Can I just say, congratulations to Anne for working for the Steve Sinnott Foundation. I knew Steve many years ago, and it came as quite a surprise to me to know and to learn this morning how much is actually being done. I was a member of the NUT delegation at the TUC in Blackpool, and Steve was there as a divisional secretary lobbying. And I joined him to lobby then, and we continued to do that in various places for years and years. And when he became NUT General Secretary, he was such a breath of fresh air. And I'm absolutely delighted that you're doing so many things. It's so important that girls are educated. I mean, way back in the 90s, when Hilary Page, one of our local people, our regional members, was SIGB president, we were all involved with the UN in trying to get education for girls up to 13 to be achieved by the year 2000. It never happened, but we worked for 10 years on it. And it seems dreadful, actually, that when you give us the numbers of girls who are not in education and have such limited ability to get there means, you just carry on with the work you're doing, because that's the only way it'll work, by people on the ground there doing it. Thank you so much and good luck.
Thank you, Eslyn. That's lovely to hear from somebody that actually knew Steve Sinnott. And I'll report back to Mary Sinnott, because she always likes to know when I meet people who knew Steve. Thank you very much.
Could I just say something, Jane?
Yeah, sure.
Peggy Simpson, Thames Valley. We've got a big project in Sierra Leone, so I'm delighted to hear that you're working there. We've actually built a building so that girls who missed out on education because of Ebola, we're now having we've organised lots of hand sewing machines, and they are learning how to make their own sanitary towels, and hopefully they will also make them to sell and have an income. But it will make sure then that more girls get them. But Thames Valley Club have got a little army of people making sanitary towels here, and we ship them out on a fairly regular basis when we send all the other educational things out to Sierra Leone, because one of our members comes from Sierra Leone, and she's actually out there at the moment, hopefully supervising the roof going on a secondary school there that we're rebuilding.
Thank you very much, Peggy, for sharing that. There are so many organisations doing fantastic work, and I think, you know, it is grassroots organisations working on the ground which are really making a difference. And I'd like to know a bit more about what you do, and perhaps we can connect. Thank you, Peggy.
Yes, please. Lovely.
And that's the Corrie project.
Yes, I realise now. Yes,
I think you have heard, but I'm sure, yeah, there's a connection.
I have. Yeah,
Sorry, I didn't mention that.
Right.
Thank you.
We've got a few questions here. We've got a question wanting to know what they made from the sanitary products.
Okay, so each of the sanitary pads, depending on the country, they're made in a slightly different way, because it depends on what they've got available. So they are made out of locally sourced materials, and they are, I mean, I've just found, you know, one of the templates. I don't know if you can see that on my phone. I haven't got actually a pad to show you, but I could send you something if people are interested. If they email me, I can send something. But they're made with a template, and like, for example, in Cuba, they can't get press studs to hold the flaps under the gusset of the pants. So they're using ribbons and a button and a buttonhole. So each place is slightly different, and they've adapted the template, for want of a better word, as they go and according to what's available in each country. Does that answer the question?
I think so.
Yeah.
There's if you sent me that photo, Anne, I could put it up, I should think.
Great.
If you get it to me on an email, not a WhatsApp.
I'll do that now.
We've got a question here from Louise saying, you mentioned you do work in both the UK and internationally, which is fantastic. Do you have any examples of the types of projects you've worked on in the UK, please?
Yeah, so in the UK, we've done several things. With my Steve Sinnott Foundation hat on, we've done storytelling. We a resource pack which we produced for schools to do storytelling. We also had an Education for All project, which gave young people the opportunity to campaign for Education for All and to learn about other children globally. And so we've been doing that. And I have another hat, which is I'm the UK coordinator for UNESCO ASP.NET schools. And through that, we facilitate global learning. So we host students from other countries that come to the UK, and they do school trips. And for example, we had some students from Russia last year, and they came and they were working on Shakespeare. So they did some they produced some Shakespeare sonnets together with some schools in the UK. And in a couple of weeks' time, we're doing some poetry work with students from Poland. So that's the UK projects that we do at the moment.
Can you repeat that role that you said you have with UNESCO, please?
I'm the national coordinator for UNESCO ASP.NET schools. And it's short for Associated Schools Programme. I think we've got about 11,000 schools across the world in 182 countries. And so we share global learning together.
There's another question here. Sorry, I didn't acknowledge what you just said. That sounds
Okay.
That sounds like a really another great link that you have, Anne, that I'm sure that that Soroptimists will want to hear more about another time. Sylvia says, what's the biggest challenge with online learning in countries where you work? Climate, availability, maintenance of equipment, security, those sorts of things.
I've just sent you the photo.
Okay,
I mean, it's just the template. So I think the biggest challenge is connectivity, obviously. I mean, climate always affects people. I mean, you know, if you have rainy season in Sierra Leone or the Gambia, you're not going to have much internet connectivity, even if, you know, the mast and the tower is right next door to where you're sitting with your phone. However, I think the main issue is affordability. I think, you know, in many places, it's a privilege to get online, as it is for many people in the UK. I think, you know, the connectivity is just not there. So that's why we're working now to find ways around it. So, you know, there are ways of students being able to learn, you know, with a screen and a USB stick without, you know, having the access to the internet. But it is absolutely appalling, really, that in this day and age, there are people who have never been online and probably in their lifetime won't ever go online. Have you got it, Jane?
Not yet. I think I suspect my Wi-Fi is about to explode.
No. Well, it's gone. It says it's gone.
Okay.
Yeah, so in answer to the question, I think it's affordability and availability of internet connection for everybody.
I'll put that up when we have the when we have our coffee break. I'll do that, I think. I'll stop.
I'll send you a couple of more photos.
Right.
Jane,
Yes.
sorry, can I just say to Anne, like Eslyn, I also knew Steve from the same background as Eslyn's, and he was an amazing man.
Oh, thank you, Joanna.
We've got a note on here from Catherine Clark, who's a member of the St Albans Club, and she's saying today is World Mental Health Day, and we're talking about education. So I thought I'd mention Hertfordshire's Wellbeing College. Kat's a trainer for the New Leaf Wellbeing and Recovery College in Hertfordshire, which offers free training for people living in Hertfordshire to promote wellbeing. We've had to move online to Zoom during lockdown and have found it's reached out to people who have otherwise found it difficult to get on courses through transport issues, health and mobility issues, and poor mental health. We're also in the process of writing a course on women's health and empowerment. So there's another good link, isn't there, with the New Leaf Wellbeing College and Kat's work in St Albans. Is it St Albans, Kat? I don't. Is it?
It's Hertfordshire. It's Hertfordshire wide.
Actually, doesn't matter if it's online anyway.
No, well, yeah, we're funded for Hertfordshire, but I'm sure we get a few sneaking on.
Thank you, Catherine.
Aha. Here we go. Yeah, to see what Anne was telling us about. There we go. Can everyone see that? That's the template. Presumably that's the outside fabric, is it, Anne?
So yeah, that's the outside fabric, and they get sewn together and turned inside out, and then you can see there's it's really difficult for me to show online, but there's a pad that fits inside there, and then the flaps secure underneath the gusset of the knickers. So that's the outside liner, and then inside a pad gets positioned, and you can change the pad, you know, several times a day, but use the same liner.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Can I just join in? Sorry.
I'm sorry too.
Go on.
Go ahead, Ashley.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to say, you've talked about Africa, but I know in Asia, my daughter lived in Thailand for a short time, and they were very proud of the fact that all their children had education up to 13, which was all very well, till I said, well, why are we seeing all these children running around in the daytime, selling little things to make money for the families? And they denied that was happening, but I mean, you could see them. And it turned out, of course, that education was free, but they had to wear particular uniform, which was invariably white. And also they had to purchase all their own books. So the teaching might have been free, but the other things made it impossible for these very poor families for the children to go to school. So it's not just, I wonder how many children are being considered that they have the opportunity for education, when in actual fact, the numbers are far greater that don't, because of these other restrictions that are put on them.
Yes, I mean, there's when reports are published, quite often they will say that the registration at school figures have gone up, but actually it's whether it's sustainable for children to continue into school. And as you rightly say, there are all these other factors, such as, you know, how do they get to the school? You know, I mean, we all know stories of children who have to walk miles and miles and miles because there's no way they could afford a bus or a taxi to school. And then, of course, there is all the costs of uniform, books, etc. And also in many of the countries we work in, teachers don't always get paid, you know, so sometimes, you know, they have been, you know, taking children out of school to help them on their farms so that, you know, they can have a sustainable community and actually feed each other. So, you know, there is a huge minefield as to why, you know, education isn't accessible or affordable for everybody. Everybody stay quiet, well behaved. Jane, what have you done to them? I've never seen so many women so quiet.
It's the muting thing, isn't it, that does it?
Oh yes, of course, I forgot about that. Sorry.
We're all being very polite.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any more questions for Anne, or anybody want to share anything about what they're doing different through their work? Kat, that was a really good example. I don't know, Louise, are you still there? What you must be working differently. Louise is also looking after two young boys, so she might have had to disappear.
Yes.
Can I ask a question of Anne, or just follow up on the question I had earlier about the online learning? Because I remember years ago, we heard about somebody in India who made the internet available to children by building a screen and a keyboard into the wall next to a cash box in the city in India. And of course, the children just taught themselves how to use it.
Mm.
And it does strike me, it probably only work in the cities because of the sort of the communication side of things. But it does seem a pity that we can't get that type of learning module into places in that way, because I suspect for all of the challenges there are for children, that if you put the learning tools in front of them, they will seek education, because for them it's a toy.
Yeah.
Soak it up.
So Sylvia, sorry, was there a question in there?
The general thing as to whether that is something where I think we all rightfully got concerned that children, because of cultural issues, whether they don't get the opportunity to go to school, is whether we need to focus on the ways we can deliver education, hope that the children simply will access it by their own volition. I don't know whether you think that is a way forward.
Yes, definitely it is a way forward. And that's some of the work that we're doing now with Brunel University. Part of the work that we did in the Gambia was sending the solar radios because, in the rural areas, children and communities do not have access at all to the internet. So we started off with the solar radios, and now we're working on a project where we will develop the curriculum with the Gambia teachers. What's really important for us as a foundation is that the curriculum is a local curriculum, and there are lots of organisations who develop iPads, solar powered iPads, but the curriculum isn't local. It's a British or a US curriculum, and we won't put